Hey friends, thank you for listening to the Diet Diaries today. So this episode is going to air Monday, September 29th. And I'm going to talk today about why it's so hard for some of you to exercise. And this was actually a podcast request topic from someone who had submitted on Instagram. And it's funny because since then I've talked about this in sort of a couple different forms and reels and social and whatever, but I wanted to kind of consolidate everything, specifically answer the question that had come in and kind of consolidate some of the different things I've talked about. So you have all these resources in one place and can use them to then determine, well, what are you going to work on? What specific skill or what is going to be your action step if you are someone who has been struggling to exercise regularly, or let's say you're someone who walks regularly but you're not strength training and you want to strength train, right? So any part of exercising that is not happening on a regular basis, hasn't happened at all, that you want to get started with. Super quick, I'm just going to mention that in October I am going to take on 2 new one-to-one coaching clients. It is one of my most favorite times of year to start with people because typically coming into like October as we're heading into holidays, people are either in one or two camps. They're in the fuck it, I'm just going to go all in and I'll deal with this in January. Or they're in the I'm going to buckle down and I'm going to cut out sugar and carbs and I'm only going to have dessert on Thanksgiving from now until January 1st. And there's truly like never a quote unquote right time to start. And because there's always life is always happening. So I love this because within the first couple of weeks of starting, you can get skills in place to support you through the holidays so that you are not on either one of those extreme spectrums. You're in a place where you can enjoy the food of the holidays, starting with Halloween, all the way into Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and all of the things and whatever it is that you celebrate or don't celebrate. You can go into the holidays with skills already in place to help support you so that you're not gaining weight, you're not feeling like shit, you're not like binging on the leftover stuff sitting in the cabinet, and you're also not enjoying anything, right? Sometimes I talk about what I do as coaching as this concept of stop eating all of the cake or none of the cake, right? And let's figure out how to have some cake. And that's not the same as like quote unquote eating in moderation. That's a way oversimplification of what we're trying to do here. Anyway, just a heads up that that's coming. If you've been thinking about coaching, now's your time. So I will share links to book consults both here and on my email list first before I even open it up on social media. And so if you're listening here, you're already in. All right, let's talk about why it's so fucking hard to go to the gym sometimes. So specifically the question that came from the person was, she's struggling with motivation to exercise or lack thereof. Why so many obstacles? Just tired. And just the way she wrote this was like, oh, I hear you. And I think so many of you listening can probably resonate with this. And so kind of one of the big concepts I wanted to talk about this podcast might be a little bit longer. I'm going to try and keep it around 20 minutes. Everything we do is a behavior. Everything. Eating cookies in front of the TV is a behavior. Sitting scrolling on your phone instead of working out is a behavior. Staying up late finishing work emails is a behavior. Sleeping in the morning instead of getting up with your alarm to work out is a behavior. I think sometimes we tend to think as behaviors as only the quote unquote good things, but everything we do is a behavior. Some of those behaviors are in alignment with how we want to be taking care of ourselves, and some of them are not. And so when we think about behaviors, if everything is a behavior, that means we are always motivated to do those behaviors. Now, again, we tend to think of motivation only in terms of doing the thing that we want to do that positively benefits us or that we think we should be doing. And we think that when we don't do that, we are lacking motivation or we have no motivation. You have motivation. It's just being directed at something else. It's being directed at something that is not serving you, that you actually don't want to be doing, right? Like for instance, let's say that you have, you want to go to bed early, but you end up scrolling TikTok. And I should be using a gym example, but I'm not, right? You end up scrolling social media, right? And then you say, oh, like, I'm just like not motivated to go to bed early. Like it's so hard. It's so much work. You're motivated to stay on TikTok. You're not motivated to go to bed early. You are motivated to be doing something else, right? So let's put it in the context of the gym. Making time, let's say it's like getting up half an hour earlier than you normally would to go outside and go for a walk or do a workout in your basement, whatever it is, right? So you have to get up at, let's say, 6 a.m. instead of 6:30. And you say, oh my God, I'm so not motivated. It's so hard to get up. I just have no interest in doing this. Okay, you're maybe not motivated to get up, but you are motivated to sleep in. So I think acknowledging that the motivation exists, it just doesn't exist in the place that we want it to exist, is really, really important, because every behavior that we do is driven by a motivation. Even sitting on the couch and doing nothing and literally what people are now calling rotting on the couch all day, you're motivated to do that. I think we typically would think of oh my God, I'm so unmotivated, so I'm sitting on the couch. No, you are motivated to sit on the couch. You're not motivated to go and run errands or get the shit done that you want to get done. So there's a mismatch between what you have motivation for and what you actually want to be doing that's going to benefit you, okay? So what do we do about that, right? We don't magically just redirect or shift that motivation. We have to walk ourselves through doing the thing that we want to do. And that requires a different skill sets. So when it comes to going to the gym, right, a lot of us walk around thinking, I have no motivation to go to the gym. I have no motivation to exercise. I don't feel like it. It's hard. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to make time for it. I'm super busy. Lots and lots of reasons, excuse me. Well, you're motivated to do lots of other things in place of that. And so how do we create that motivation to exercise? Well, that's what we need to do, right? In order to get yourself to do a behavior, you do have to motivate yourself, and you are going to essentially create that motivation. Now, another piece of this that I want to talk about, which I talked about on social media, well, by the time you see this, it'll have been a week and a half before. But again, I will link the reel because I think it's helpful. I'm going to talk about it in more context here. Is I talked about that going to the gym is not a habit. And literally, I feel like people use the word habit just as a stand-in for anything that they want to do. And I think it's very common for people to say, I need to get into the habit of going to the gym. I need to get into the habit of waking up early. I need to get into the habit of making veggies for dinner. I need to get into the habit of putting my phone down or putting my phone in another room before I go watch TV, right? And this is the thing where language matters, because none of those things are habits. They are all behaviors that happen as a result of a series of steps and thought processes that we are going through internally, and also as a result of some external structure that we create. So let's keep it focused in terms of talking about the gym. Going to the gym is not a habit. There is not a single person on this earth for whom going to the gym is a habit. And here's why. Let's talk about what a habit is, right? A habit is a repetitive behavior that occurs automatically, and it's acquired through repeated actions over time and learned associations. So going to the gym does not happen automatically. It does not happen without conscious thought. And so when we say that I need to make going to the gym a habit, or I wish that I could, make going to the gym a habit like she does, whoever you see on social media, what happens is, because that's not even really how it works, we then start to feel ashamed because we're not able to do this thing, but we have a inaccurate perception of what's actually going on. Again, nobody goes to the gym automatically. It just doesn't happen with unconscious thought, right? Examples of habits are like brushing your teeth when you wake up in the morning, putting on your seatbelt when you get in a car. I think for a lot of people, washing your hands after they get really dirty and they're gross. Those are things those are ingrained behaviors that we do, pretty automatically without having to think about it, without having to have a lot of drive or walking ourselves through a process, a thought process. Going to the gym, again, is not one of those. Going to the gym can get easier over time and it can take less effort, but it's always going to take some amount of effort. When am I going? Where am I going? What am I doing? What do I need to wear? What time do I need to leave, right? There's so many things that have to happen in order for you to go to the gym. And I think just understanding and acknowledging that this is the process is really helpful, because I think it'll help. I'm hoping it'll help take away some of the shame that people have around why they struggle with going to the gym, because they think it should just be this thing that they automatically do because they think all these other people are automatically doing it, and that it's just a habit, and that there's something wrong with them because they can't make it a habit. Nobody can make it a habit. It doesn't exist that way. So what we need to do is we need to figure out, well, what are the steps? What is the support that I need to have in place internally for myself to get myself to go, right? Because if you've decided that you need and want to go to the gym, awesome, right? And honestly, everyone needs to exercise in some form, whether that's at a gym or not, separate thing. But everyone needs to exercise their bodies. Just fact. I guess if you don't care about your health, maybe not, but if you care about your health, you want to feel good, you want to take care of your body, lots of different reasons you need to exercise. That can show up in many, many different ways, right? Going to the gym is just one way to exercise. There are lots of different ways and places to exercise. And this is really not specific about the gym. This is about exercise in general, right? So I'm going to kind of now loop this back to the specific question the person had asked was motivation to exercise, right? So I've kind of already addressed that, right? You're motivated to do other things. We need to redirect that motivation. Not redirect, but we need to create motivation to exercise, which I'm going to talk about. And why so many obstacles, okay? So 2 things here. One, in terms of motivation, right? If I am wanting to exercise, but I'm never feeling motivation, I'm motivated to do something else in its place. You need to get really clear on why you're exercising. What is it that you want to get out of it? And I kind of just like randomly, rattled off reasons why people exercise, but you need to know for yourself, why am I doing this? And it could be just because I know it's good for my health. But it might be helpful to get even more specific. It's good for what part of your health? Your mental health, your physical health, your cardiovascular health, musculoskeletal health. I think the more specific you can get, the more helpful it's going to be. Because when things are like big and broad and vague, it becomes a little bit harder for us to kind of hold on to those things and really connect with them. Right? Maybe exercising is alone time for you. Maybe you have something going on in your body specifically that you want to deal with, that you need to build strength for. Maybe it's like you have a hard time getting up and down off the floor and that's something you need to work on, or you want to be able to pick up, your 30-pound grandkid or niece or nephew. Or I have a friend of mine who talks about this all the time. She's in her 50s and she always says, I strength train, so I want to be the strongest 90-year-old that I know. I think that's fucking awesome. And hi, Stephanie, if you're listening. Creating a specific reason or understanding, acknowledging what is your specific reason for exercise is really important, because when you don't feel like going, it's something that you can come back to, right? Acknowledging that it's okay to not want to exercise, that is normal, that you don't always have to want to do it, and being able to kind of sit in the discomfort of that. Having ways to make it simpler to exercise, right? So if you have a plan to exercise and then you don't feel motivated to go, what's your backup plan? Is it to do a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood? Is it to lift weights for 5 minutes in your basement? Is it to throw in a 10-minute YouTube dance video? I'm just throwing out random things. You need to have a backup plan that feels pretty easy to do. And then along with that, right, this kind of speaks to the whole thing, your brain is going to tell you it's not enough. If I can't do half an hour, why would I bother doing 10 minutes? And that is a really big downfall for people. Huge. And so we tell ourselves when we go to exercise, it's got to be half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. And then it feels really hard to find the motivation to do that. So I'm not going to guarantee you, but I'm going to strongly suggest that starting off with less is going to make it a lot easier to find that motivation. And if you tell yourself, if you commit to exercising for 5 or 10 minutes, you are going to find it a lot easier to follow through than if you say it's got to be half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Right. So these are all the different things that you can do to create that motivation for yourself, right? You're motivated to do something else in that moment. You have to create the motivation for yourself. Making it simpler, making it easier, making it more accessible, and doing less are going to be the absolute best ways that you can do that. Now, this kind of speaks to, right, back to this question again, why are there so many obstacles, right? If you're feeling obstacles to working out, you need to identify what those are. What are your biggest 1 to 3 obstacles? Is it time? Is it resources? Is it mental energy? Mental energy, I think, would really be kind of like the same thing as motivation. Is it knowing what to do? Is it having kind of support, or like needing programming, or needing someone to tell you what to do? There are many different obstacles. You need to identify what are the 1 to 3 biggest ones that are stopping you. And then you need to identify, how can I make those things easier, right? A big one for people is time. I don't have time. So the number one way to address that is to exercise for less time. And again, that's going to come back to noticing your all or nothing brain telling you it's not enough. Acknowledging that and saying, it's okay that my brain's thinking that. I know why it's thinking that. And also, just because my brain is thinking that doesn't mean I have to listen. Doesn't mean that's true. If my options are to exercise for 5 minutes or 0 minutes, 5 minutes is going to be better, right? Because if I keep telling myself I've got to do 30, 45 an hour, and then I end up doing nothing, this guy, I've talked about this for years. Let's use a little kind of concrete math to support this concept. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is always going to be 0. But 0.01 plus 0.01 plus 0.01 is always going to add up to a bigger number, right? So kind of just a little bit of like a concrete way to think about the idea that doing something is better than doing nothing, which I think we kind of logically understand, but it's hard to translate that. And so again, if you keep telling yourself, well, I've got to exercise for 30 plus minutes, and then because that feels like too much, you end up doing nothing. If you say I'm going to exercise for 5 minutes and you end up doing that 5 minutes a couple times a week, well, there you've exercised 15, 20 minutes over the course of the week when previously you were doing nothing. That's uncomfortable. This is hard, again, because your brain is going to tell you it's not enough, and you have to be prepared for that. And this again goes back to the motivation piece. You've got to be prepared for what your brain is going to tell you is good or bad or right or wrong. And you've got to be ready to notice it and say, okay, cool. I see you, brain. I hear you. I don't have to listen to you. I know that there's a different way that I can approach this. So I wanted to mention the time thing because I know it's a really big one. Energy is another one, right? Feeling tired, not having the mental energy, the physical energy. So again, you're going to do less. You're going to go for a walk around your block. You're going to do a 5-minute strength workout. You're going to do something that more closely matches your energy level versus saying, well, I've got to go do a boot camp class. I've got to do a 30-minute run. I've got to do a 40-minute strength workout, right? It's so much about noticing that all or nothing mindset. That is probably the thing that keeps most of us stuck in, not just around this, in so many areas that we want to change. And again, this isn't about shutting that off or making your brain not think that. That's literally impossible. It's about noticing when you do that and how you respond to it, and responding in a different way. Kind of the last part of this I want to talk about, which I haven't really talked about, is sort of like the external piece of this, right? When you're not feeling motivated to exercise, but you're feeling motivated to scroll your phone or sit on the couch or whatever it is, having some type of external support structure can help create that motivation, right? That could be something like having a buddy that you've committed to going to a walk or a class with, signing up for a class in advance, not just signing up, but putting money, right? Money is different than just signing up. Letting someone know, I'm planning to do a workout at 7:00 on Thursday night. Hey, can you check in with me and make sure that I'm going to do it, right? There are lots of different ways to create external support for yourself. If you want to strength train and you're like, I don't really know where to start. Okay, well, let's buy a program from someone. Let's get some structure in place and make sure that program matches up with your needs, that it's not a 45-minute workout, that there's a 10 or 15-minute option, so that you don't have to show up at the gym and figure it out on your own. So again, going to the gym is not a habit. It is a behavior that takes effort, that takes thought, that takes intention. And setting up kind of these building blocks for yourself is going to be a huge part of doing that. And really getting clear around why you want to exercise in as specific of a way as possible, and I just totally lost my train of thought. It's so crazy when your brain just goes blank like that. Getting as specific as possible and knowing that it's okay to not want to go and not always expecting yourself to be motivated, and knowing that every time you go, it's going to take some work, but knowing that that work gets easier over time, right? So I walk pretty much every day of the week. It is something that has become so ingrained in me in terms of how I want to feel, where if I don't walk, I literally don't feel like myself. I feel like I want to crawl out of my skin. But I don't do it at the same time every day. I do a similar route just because of where I live, but I don't do it at the same time. I don't always go at the same pace or the same way. I have to think about making that walk happen. It's not a habit. There's nothing about it that's a habit. There's nothing, again, about going to the gym that is a habit. These things take effort. And I think just acknowledging that and recognizing that is really important. And I'm hoping that some of the things that I've mentioned here give you one or two places to start to pay attention to help you create the motivation to go, to help take away some of the shame for why it does feel so hard to go, and give you a path to moving forward. So that's what I got. Thanks for listening. If you've got questions, reach out. I'm always here. And I'll be back next week.